All right, here's our new cams provided with the Hooligan kit. And guess what, gang? I'm gonna consult the instruction sheet just to be sure we're doing things right here. One other thing, the new cams. Looks like they got Cosmoline on them. That's to keep them from corroding while they're in the box being shipped around the countryside. So we're gonna go ahead and clean these off, figure out which ones are which, and get them installed, show you how to line up the timing marks. After studying the instructions for a few minutes, I've realized that depending on what year you're working on, you wanna pay attention to your pinion gear that's on your crankshaft. And these cams that come with the Hooligan kit they don't say it on the box, but I looked it up. They're gonna be the 482 cam from S&S. So according to my information here, since this is a 2003, I don't have to mess with my pinion gear. Yay! I could just put my cams in and be done with it. If you do have a 91 to 99 or an 86 to 87, or certain models, you just got to pay attention. There's a neat little picture there of the different style pinion gears that they have available. And if you're doing these cams in this particular motor, they're going to want you to change the pinion gear to a different one. Well, we got lucky. We don't have to mess with that. And then the next thing I looked at was checking, what's this picture 2? Okay. Number 3 cam lobe. Check bearing or bushing in crankcase. Spin the cam 360 to check for lobe to crankcase interference. Okay? And I distinctly remember the last time I used some cams. They were supposed to be bolt-in, but they weren't, and I had to clearance the crankcase. Well, that one looks like it's pretty good. There's my lobe to the crankcase, and she's a close, but it can't move up and down once everything's together, so that one looks pretty good. This one, and you know what, I think we will go ahead and install it, and we'll rotate the rods, and we'll look at it then, just to be sure. So we'll take this stuff out of here, and this will turn that, and then we'll be able to make sure that we're not having any contact. Okay, seems to turn no problem. All right, number 2 looks good. Let's check this one. All right, that one looks good. And the last one. She's a tight one, but we'll be all right. What I've done after I got done pulling this one out is I rotated the engine so that the timing mark on the flywheel is in this location, because that's what it shows in the picture book that came with the cams. Let's go ahead and put our stuff back in there. We're done rotating the engine around for now. So we'll put our rags back in there to keep unwanted items out of that area. In order to identify which of these 3 goes in which hole, you just look at the cam. The marks, the timing marks. Number 1 is going to have 1 dot. Number 2 is going to have 3 dots, and it's the big one, so it's not so difficult to figure out where that one goes. Number 3 cam is going to have 3 dots on it, and that's because it has to line up with 2 different gears, number 2 and number 4. And then number 4 is going to have 2 dots on it, but they're kind of nice. They give you 1 at the tooth and 1 there, so it makes it a little easier for you. And so And the other thing is, so we've got our mark lined up there. On this one, this mark here is going to line up with that one. This one's going to line up with this cam, and this one's going to line up with this cam. But you can't put this in first because these two have to go in first because this gear won't let those go in second. So we'll start by putting this one in. And we should probably also put a little bit of luber-duber on that new cam to the bushing. Even though it's pretty oily there, it still won't hurt anything. Let me grab an oil can here. Okay, so I've put my number 1 in. I'm going to put my number 3 in, and then I'm going to try to figure out where I need to have these in order for all the marks to line up. And I'm also putting just a little bit of oil on the new cam before I put it in the bushing. We'll also put some oil on the gears after we get it all together. We'll squirt a little oil on the gears. Okay, so this one is going to be single mark facing this way, single mark, double mark facing that way. And once again, this one has 3 marks on it. This is the hard part. Okay, this mark is going to line up with the flywheel, and there's our line on our flywheel. So let's just kind of get an idea of where we need everything to be, and then we'll get it together. That one. And you'll see that these won't mesh until they are lined up. So there's that one, okay? And here's this one, needs to be right about there, and that one needs to be right about there. And let's see, where are we at on the other side? How did we do? Dot to dot, dot to line, dot to dot. So that's all there is to it. And then we have one last one to put in. A little oil on her. And we've got, this one should be pretty darn easy. Bam. So there it is, lined up. You can compare it to your picture with your instructions, and you'll see all the places they line up, and the fact that we have all the cams in their correct locations. It'd be kind of hard to put them in the wrong place because you'd have stuff that wouldn't line up. So we'll verify it one more time. That looks good. Good, good. Bam. Not so difficult, is it? Now we're just about ready to put our gasket back on, put our cover home. We're going to put a new seal in the cover along with our new gasket. We'll button up this part, and then we can move along and start putting our new pistons, rings, and cylinders on. Woo! Okay, before we put our cam cover back on, we're going to go ahead and change the seal right there. That seals the cam from oil from leaking into here, so I went ahead and pulled this out so I can get to it. Normally, I would use this handy-dandy seal puller, but I'm seeing that that's probably not going to be the best plan of action because I really won't have a whole lot of leverage. So I think I'm going to go ahead and use this small pry bar, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over. So I'm just going to use this tool right here from the back side, being careful of the bushing. And oh, look at that. There she goes. Look at her. There she is. That worked just fine. Okay. Our little spring thingy came out. Okay. Now, we'll go ahead and clean it out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put our seal in with the closed side facing up. And I've got this kit right here that you can buy at your favorite inexpensive tool store. Seal driver kit. Also works well for bearings. Great little kit to have, not very expensive. So, this one here looks like it'll be the right size. Yep, that should work pretty good. Make sure your seal is even all the way around before you start driving it. You don't want one side to go in first and not the other side. Then it gets all cattywampus, and that's not good. So you can put different sizes on the handle for different seals, bearings, races, yada yada. Okay, it looks like it's pretty even. And just like that, there's the seal, new seal installed in the cover. We're ready to put it back on the engine with a new gasket. Let's head over there now. All right, we are ready to put the cam cover back on. I gave it a quick blow down with some brake clean, kind of wiped the gasket surface off to make sure it was clean and dry. We've got a new gasket here. I'm going to be using a James gasket. Be sure that your gasket is correct for your year model, because there is some differences in the slots and the configuration of a Sportster gasket. The package on this one says 2000 and up, so we know that's right. The Harley gasket is kind of much thinner and has metal in it. This gasket's going to work just fine, no problem there. Okay, so verify your marks one last time before you put your cover on. Doesn't hurt, just make sure. Okay, dot to dot, dot to line, dot to dot, dot to dot, 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 dot. Okay, everything's cool there. We also want to go ahead and put some oil where the gears are meshing with each other, like so. Not too much so that it gets everywhere, but just enough so when she rotates, you've got some oil on those teeth. And we're just going to put a little bit of oil on here where they go into the bushings. On the cover. Oh, that's not what I wanted to happen. That's okay, it'll be all right. We'll wipe that off. Okay, so we got some oil on here. Also decided we're going to go ahead and use some shiny fasteners. Who doesn't like shiny fasteners? Woo! We got all these awesome Colony kits on the website. I'm going to be doing cam cover, I'm going to do these pins, I'm going to do the lifter blocks, I'm going to do the rocker boxes. I got a primary cover kit. They also stock a complete engine kit. So if you have your motor completely torn down and you're rebuilding it and you want to put shiny fasteners on it, Colony is the way to go. All these kits available on the website. So you may remember that we did this. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a guide once we open up our kit, so we get them in the right places. Okay, on a stock Harley fastener, the washer is captive. In other words, it can't come off of the screw fastener. On the Colony kit for these, the fasteners come loose in the package. There is, if you look at these style of washers, you're going to see one side is rounded and one side is flat. I'm going to go ahead and put all the rounded sides facing the head of the fastener. You want the flat side on the cover, like so. So the best plan of action was to go ahead and replace them one at a time in here, so that as I'm doing it, because there is 3 different lengths on these, so now I have this nice little guide as I go along to just put them in and not have to think about which one goes where. Because 2 of them are long, but one's longer than the other, and you don't want to put the longer than the other one in the short longer than the other one hole. Ha, yeah, okay, great. Okay, I also scrounged around my toolbox and found me a worm drive hose clamp to replace these funky Harley ones. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put the cam chest breather hose that connects to the oil tank back onto the fitting on the back side of the cover after we clean the oil off of this again. That's the fitting right here, is going to this hose. This is kind of a fiddly little thing here. You're just gonna plug her in. Not the easiest thing to do. There she goes. Okay, we've got our hose on there. One other thing we want to do is we want to put just a little bit of oil on the seal to help it, the cam shaft. All right, Gotta get our gasket on there. I know this is kind of a fiddly thing, Harley, putting that silly hose on there like that. One last time, we'll wipe the oil that keeps leaking out of the pump here. New gasket. There's one dowel to locate our gasket. Isn't that nice? I guess that'll be okay. So I'm probably going to start with these rear ones because see how it's drooping down just a skosh. So I'm going to go ahead and get all my fasteners in before I tighten anything. Okay, ready to put the cover on. Let's see how this goes. Oh, that was pretty good. She's seated. We can go ahead and start putting our screws in using our guide. And just as I thought, the gasket's drooping down on that hole. So I pulled it out ever so slightly to... There she goes. Okay, we weren't going to bore you with me putting 11 fasteners in a cam cover. They're all installed. If you look at the instructions, there's a sequence of tightening on those, and it does say to torque them 280 to 110 inch-pounds. I'm going to torque them by hand, and I'll tell you why. Got a steel fastener and aluminum. Had an incident a number of years ago with an inch-pound torque wrench on a cam plate for a twin cam and ripped the threads right out. I can feel what 100 inch-pounds feels like. I don't need an inch-pound torque wrench. If you'd like to use one in your garage, go for it. If you pull the threads out, don't be calling me. Okay, one other thing I wanted to mention too about chrome fasteners. If you're installing one and it feels hard going, there's a likely chance that there may be a buildup of chrome on the threads of the fastener. No fault of the manufacturer, it's generally the chrome shop. So you want to stop, regroup, maybe run the fastener through a die, and then try it again. You just got to cut the chrome off the threads. I had one fastener like that, and we did that when you weren't looking. But at any rate, all the fasteners are in. I am going to use the guide that's in the instructions for the sequence of tightening. So they're saying number one is this one. Click. 2 is this one. Click. That's my calibrated elbow. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There you have it. New cam's in, new seal, new gasket, cam cover's done. And look how nice those shiny fasteners look. Don't they look good? Yeah. Okay. We're going to go ahead and rotate the engine, make sure everything's spinning freely with the new cams in there. Oh, look at that. That's nice. Nothing going wrong there. No binding. Everything feels beautiful. We're going to go ahead and put our rags back in there again. Once again, don't want any foreign objects going into our crankcase where our rods are, because that would be bad. Okay, now that we've got the cam cover all buttoned up, we can go ahead and put the this pickup back into the end of the cam. Once again, it's a good idea to put this up first without the screw. There's this notch which coincides with the cam that we showed you earlier, so you can basically put it up there and kind of move it. Oh, there it is right there, I can feel, and then hold it with one hand and start your screw with the other hand. And I would guess if it's not in that spot, it's going to be all cattywampus. Tight enough, don't need to overdo it. Okay, then we're just going to pull this wire back through, put our ignition unit back in there, and since my mark is long gone, we'll be timing it later. You can see on that plate the round circle from this part. So I'm going to go ahead and put it there, and then that'll be a good starting point for when we get everything all back together and we're setting the ignition timing. So I'm just going to reinstall these. I'm just going to snug them up. Not going to tighten them down all the way right now. So I guess the moral of that story is if you want to mark where it was before, scribe it instead of using a Sharpie. And that's that. We don't have to worry about that just yet. Okay, we got the cam cover all buttoned up. We can go ahead and put the lifters in now. Kit comes with new lifters. Got them out of the package here, ready to rock. I am going to use the oil can and I'm going to squirt some oil down in the hole so it goes on the cam lobes. Like so. Okay? When we're putting the lifters in, you want that roller pin to be facing out because this roller rolls on the cam lobe. If you put it this way, that's not going to work. And also there's these flats for our pins. So when this goes in, pin goes in here, rides against that flat and keeps this from rotating. Probably also wouldn't hurt to put a little oil on the lifters. Some people like to soak these things in a pan of oil to pump them up. I really don't have a problem with letting the engine pump it up. Once the engine starts after it's rebuilt, you'll just hear a little lifter ticking until they pump up and then it'll be fine. Okay, so we've lubed up the cam lobes, we've lubed up the lifters. We've got some new Colony anti-rotation shiny ones. We're going to use those. Once again, going with our chrome theme on the fasteners. Same program as the other ones, rounded side, flat side. And also, there's some holes on the lifters. On this engine, it really doesn't matter which way they face. So the lifter's just gonna drop down into the hole like so. And then we're gonna put the anti-rotation pin in there. And it feels like my lifters just turned just a skosh when I dropped it in the hole, so I'm going to get a pick or a magnet, pull it back up out of there. Bada bing. Yes, she was turned ever so slightly. So you'll know if it's not in there right. I think it turned when I dropped it down in there. That looks good. Okay, see now the pin's starting. Simple as that. Okay. There's another one in the hole. That's a good. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get the cylinders and pistons unpackaged in preparation for checking the ring end gap. Make sure you inventory your parts. Here goes the pin, the piston, the cylinder, and we need some clips. Where's it? Oh, here they are. Okay, let's, well, I can tell we're gonna have to clean that out. It feels like they've got something on it for packaging purposes and to keep it from corroding. So we're gonna clean those out before we get going here. And let's get something on the workbench because we like everything to be nice and clean. Anytime you're doing engine work, you want to keep things clean. Lots of cardboard in there. Oh, and look at that. These are some locating dowels. Oh, here's the other ones for that one. Those are going to get installed in those holes there. You'll see. And from experience, I'm going to guess, and we'll look at the instructions in a sec, shiny one's probably going to go on the top. I like to set my rings. Usually most rings come in a package that you unfold and I mark them, but I'm guessing these are all loose. That's going to be the top. That one's probably going to be the middle. And these will be the bottom. So we'll go ahead and separate them into piles, like so. And then we'll look at the instructions and see if I was right. All right, so this instruction sheet I was just referring to while we were working here is for the piston rings. And when I got to the little chart here that tells you what ring end gap they're looking for, and we'll show you how we're going to do that in a second, it's got some crazy chart that says application, street high performance, top ring, bore times 0.0045. I was like, okay, I'm pretty seasoned. Do I want to figure out, find my bore size, take it times that to get my ring end gap? No, I want a specific number. So I said, let's try looking at the other instruction sheet that came with the kit. And this one says pistons and cylinder kit. And then what did I find? Oh, a really nice looking picture that you can probably see a whole lot better picture of that you could probably see from all the way over there. Okay, and then when I get to the next page, suggested ring end gaps. This is what I'm used to seeing in the field, working at a shop, putting big bore kits on day after day after day. It basically tells you top ring, minimum gap 16 thousandths, maximum 22 thousandths, second ring 16 to 26, oil control ring 10 to 50. 50, that's a lot. Okay, so now that we have a real number, I got my feeler gauges out. We're going to take the top ring, shiny one, and you're just going to place it in the bore. I like to put it in at an angle like that and then turn it. And then what you do next is you take your piston and you square up the ring in the bore. So in other words, we want that ring to be sitting in the bore even to do the measurement. Okay, so we're looking for 16 thousandths minimum. Okay, so we're going to take our 16 thousandths feeler gauge, that's 0.016, and we're going to put it in the end of the gap that's on the ring here, and we're going to check it, and 16 goes. So that's good. We can continue to go up a size and figure out what it is, but what we'll do, you know what, let's go ahead and do that just for the heck of it. So we're just going to go up one size at a time to see what our actual ring end gap is. 17 goes. '18 goes, but real tight. So I'd be safe to say that the ring end gap on the top ring on this cylinder is going to be 17 thousandths. That falls well within our spec of 16 to 22. Yay, good to go. No grinding required. Take your ring out, put your next ring in. All right, so I started with a 16 on the second ring, the one that goes in the second groove on the piston. And she's the same as the other one, 17. I'm pretty happy with that. That's perfectly fine. Okay? All right, upon further inspection of the second ring, I noticed there is a very slight bevel on it, which corresponds to figure 3. According to it says, if ring has no dot but does have an inside diameter bevel, the bevel goes to the top. So in other words, when this gets installed on the piston, that little bevel is going to face up towards the top of the piston. Once again, verifying the top ring is in fact square at the end. Well, it's not really square, but it doesn't have a bevel or a dot. Okay, oil control rings. Same program. Square it up. And once again, they want to see on the oil control ring a minimum of 10, but it goes up to 50. That's a pretty big gap once again. So I can see it's way more than 10. I don't need to get my 10 out. We'll start with our 17 because we already have it out. Oh, it's way more than 17. I don't think there's going to be any need to change any of the end gaps on these rings, but it is very important that you do check them. Maybe on a different job you're doing, it's much bigger than that. If you don't have any ring end gap, you're going to have a problem. If you have way too much ring end gap, you might have a problem. So basically, back in the day when I was doing shovel heads, I like to see 15 thousandths. All right, we're getting up there. We're at 30, and it's still too big. What do we got going on here? Let's see, what's our biggest? Well, hell, mine only goes up to 35. How are we gonna check 50 thousandths? Let's try this one. Oh, we have a winner. Actually, it's maybe just a little bit more, so what we'll do is we'll add a smaller one to this one. That's how we're going to check it. If it's larger than what we have in our feeler gauge, we're going to put 2 of them together. So now that's 40 thousandths. If we add 5 and 35, that's pretty simple math there. Just verifying that it is not 50. All right, I'm pretty happy with that one. Just go ahead and repeat the same steps for the other cylinder. Check your ring end gap, important. We're going to go ahead and move along to getting the pistons installed on the rods, and then we'll put the rings on. We can put the rings on before we put them on. Either way, it really doesn't matter. It's probably easier to go ahead and put them on the bench and then put the pistons on, put our circlips on. And then after that, we'll use our ring compressor and we'll get these cylinders installed on there. Okay, we'll go ahead and get the oil control ring on there. We'll put this expander ring on first, down to the bottom groove, and then one each of these, either way around. There is a tool for doing this. It does make life a lot easier. Have to be kind of careful with these rings. And that thing's all cattywampus. There she goes. One other thing I want to show you too real quick here. As you're doing this oil control ring, you'll notice the way that end butts together. You don't want it to be like that or like that. You want it to be like that. You'll see when we get it on there, it'll make better sense. Okay, so we've got the expander ring, one of those on the bottom, and now we're going to put one on the top, so we'll go this way with it. Oh, she went in the wrong groove. Start over. And there you have it. And so now we're ready to put the second groove ring on. Once again, we got that bevel that's going to face up. There it is. Okay. So there's a tool that they make that I forgot to bring today. And what it does is you put it in the end here and you kind of squeeze it and it opens this up very carefully, and then you can just put it right on. But since I don't have the tool, and you might not have one too, we're doing it the old-fashioned way where we're just carefully expanding it by hand so it goes over the piston and into the groove like so. Okay, that one's ready to go on the engine. We'll go ahead and do the other one, but the one other thing that we want to look at very quickly is there's an arrow on the top of the piston that says forward. So both of the pistons are, when they get installed on the engine, are going to be facing this way. Here's our piston pin and our clips. Now what I find is much easier to do with the clips is to go ahead and install one in the piston and then go ahead and put the piston on the engine, so you'll already have one installed. And then you'll slide your pin in, it'll hit that clip, and then you put your second clip in. Now the other thing I like to do is always check the fit of the, oh look at that, she's nice, goes right in very nicely. Okay, on a high mileage engine, you also want to check this pin fit to this. And if it has considerable play, then it may be time to renew the upper rod bushing. But since this is not a high mileage engine, we don't have to worry about that. So you'll notice there's a little groove in here, and that's for basically for removing the clips. So when you put it in there, you don't want the open ends in that location. Now there's also a special tool for putting these in. I can't expect everyone in their home garage to have all these darn special tools, so we're going to go ahead and do it the old school way and just put it in by hand. All right, so we're going to show you an easy way to go ahead and get the first clip in if you don't have the special tool. Once again, we don't want that end gap to be right there where that is, or it's difficult to remove it the next time. I'm going to push that into the hole kind of straight. See how it's going straight in? And then once you get it past there, you can kind of turn it, and you can see that it's starting to go in the groove on the top but not on the bottom. So what you do is you just take the pin and put it in the other side, and then when you push on that clip, you'll hear it click in a second. Bam! So I used the pin to center it, and now it's clicked into the groove. Okay? We're ready to put the pistons onto the rods. Before we put the pistons back on, you need to make sure that you've removed all the old gasket material from the crankcase, and I already done the other side. It's okay to use a razor blade, and a little tip for you. You want to hold that razor blade at a 90-degree angle, and then you won't damage the aluminum or make any grooves in it. And so you're just gonna, there's a little bit of gasket material left on there. You just want to kind of scrape away at it, 90 degree. Don't get it down in the crankcase, that's what the blue towels are for. But you want that gasket surface. You can see that, see it there? You want to get that old junk off of there in preparation for putting the new gaskets on. We've finished cleaning all the gaskets off. It's all nice and clean. Kind of wipe those out real quick, and the next thing we want to do is we want to put a little oil on these before we put the pin in there, like so. Don't worry about that, it's going to drip out any second, it's not a big deal. Okay, once again, forward, faces forward. Go ahead and get our pin started on one side. If it goes in too far, you won't be able to get it on. And you're just going to hold that like that, and you're going to wiggle it around until it goes in like that. And also, it's a good idea to have something like this on there, stud protectors. You don't want the pistons riding against the stud like so. So we'll use those while we put this clip in, and when we get to that one, we'll move them. I should have some more on there, but I don't. All right, once again, forward, start your pin. Well, the other one went on a lot easier than that, didn't it? Oh, there it is. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there she goes. Oh, look at her go. All right, we'll just we'll put a towel around that for now. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the clips in. Once again, there is a special tool for this job. Makes life very easy. We don't have any special tool. We're going to do it the old school way. Hopefully it won't go sailing across the shop. So I almost got it all the way in by hand, but once again, if you have the tool, it makes your life so much easier. There she goes. There's half of it. And there she is. So get her in there any way you can. Careful, being careful. And then you want to always verify it is all the way in the groove. And generally, I'll check one last time before I put the cylinder on. So we got that one in there. Now we're ready to do the other one.